Yeah, so in general, we already talked about the MaaS concept, but you see already in public transport today that we're moving more to account-based ticketing systems, where actually the way how you pay this is not dependent on any means you use. It's the card, the mobile, whatever. So what we facilitate in that one is actually the tokenization part, which actually enables actually to identify you with your card, which is or card or mobile, whatever, to check in, but also to check out, but also during the customer journey to calculate actually the traveling which you're doing, and also make sure that we give it to the public transport operator that they can do the calculations and to bring it back. So that's just one example. So what we do over here, but we also go now one step further, and also in other parts of that payment area, where, for example, if you look to devices which are used for inspectors, we also supply solution like soft POS, which is a new way of payments on the acceptance side. And there's also a lot of innovation over there, where we also support there the way how you do the payment on an inspection device. This all come together, and the tokenization is actually helping us to bring it to a seamless solution, and it's also empowered by those global brands like Mastercard and Visa and so on.
Yeah, thank you very much. Bas, I'm also curious to hear from your experience. I think that we can say that Tranzer is the closest to MaaS platform in the participants that we have today in our discussion. And you can also see on your background a lot of different names that are probably your partners. So my question would be, how do you combine all the different players that they are agreeing to participate in your platform? And because it's so fragmented, and still we see that companies, organizations try to save their part of the market share. How do you counter basically this obstacle at Tranzer?
Yeah, like it's difficult in the markets to be a first mover, to explain to formerly state-owned companies that the market has changed and there are different initiatives to reach other travelers that you're not able to reach right now if you would go on the same way. If you travel from Breda to Amsterdam, you need to take an Arriva app, then an NS Dutch Railways app, and then an Amsterdam local public transport app. You need 3 apps to do your trip with the mobile phone. So you need companies that can combine those, can facilitate these multi-modal traveling. And that's indeed what I told in the beginning. It's a bit of evangelization, and also important that you can do that. That's cross-border. And indeed, what's also very important to make this ecosystem sustainable is that there is also a bit of profit sharing, because it's also something new for the mobility operators, that they share a bit of the revenues, that there's a commission stream going to the people who sell your tickets. And that's something that's really a new thing in their mindset, because that's something they'd never done before, because they were like, if you want to buy our tickets, you have to come to us and we sell you our tickets. And now it's like this second or different type of channels that exist next to them in the market.
Yeah, and I can imagine that cooperation is not as smooth, because I mean, initially they are very protective probably, so you need to overcome this. Yeah.
And that's where there's the regulator and the government is supporting the MaaS initiatives. Parag also mentioned it, what's happening in Glasgow now. And yeah, that's very important, because like if they need showcases, but also it will make the process go faster if there's some from some outside stakeholders pushing the operators in the right direction.
Yeah, I think one other thing, Sonia, you mentioned training and education. I think it's important that we're talking about behavior change here. For example, you know, what Monica's platform does is inform, you know, this is your CO2 footprint, this is what you've done, so on and so forth. The other side of the equation is, well, you inform me, but as a consumer, what action can I take in order to balance that? And to Rita's point about planting a tree or changing the behavior, That, I think, if you talk about rewards and loyalty, this is where I think there's a huge opportunity in terms of, one, informing, because an average person doesn't really recognize this. Yeah. So how can we as an industry make steps where we're trying to link sustainability with payments? So the consumer side is one equation, the corporate side is another one. So if I buy a Mercedes-Benz and I take a lease with LeasePlan Corporation, I need to go and do an EV charge somewhere, and I'll have one app for Italy and another app for Holland. What can I do, or how can I actually get something that informs me by you not using by not using the Mercedes app, for example, you've disadvantaged yourself by doing this, or do it, and this is the CO2 footprint that you might have saved, So I think there's so many different permutations and combinations that are going to come through now going forwards. And the payment part of it is a hygiene factor. I think that it's the information, and we talk about AI and data. There's a vast array of data, of behavior and things that we could do as individuals, as well as corporates. And that's an interesting one that I think Enfuce are looking at, because they're trying to map the behavior to how you can actually change and do things differently. Monica, I don't know if this is what you see in the customers you have, that you're talking to.
Yeah, and if I go back, Sonia, to the actual question, which was like, what are all of us doing for a sustainability perspective, kind of moderating a bit here. It's like Enfuce was founded, we're all bankers. We built the company to really do payments. And what is payments? Payments is the means and ways that we consume. Consumption equals emissions, emissions equals problems. So when we went to build Enfuce, we really wanted to enable the change in that sense. And of course, all of the capabilities and the problems that we have been here discussing, we have solutions to them already today. We just suck at, combining them. So I believe also that we have talked about collaboration. That is the key. And we should do, as Mercedes is also doing, we should collaborate with our fierce competitors, because that's the only way to become better. And also, if we look at the global perspective from emissions side, we want the Botswana farmer to also have the capabilities to feed his family and her family, have the lights on so that their daughters also can go to school and not try to study in the dark. So electricity is really important. Of course, payments, money, all of those are important. And what we did then, since we do payments for a living, and we're really good at this, I would even say that we're the best there is. And the reason why is that we really went in to solve the incumbent players' problems, to not have the problems that John was talking about, because you don't have to have it. It's just shitty design. So when you get that in place, and then on top of that, you add the emission calculator. We also have My Carbon Action. But the idea with My Carbon Action was that it's not only telling how much emissions I got based on what I paid, because then you already had the problem. You already did that. And then to actually compensate, it's a challenge. It can easily be greenwashing, because there are a holy trinity to saving the world. It's to avoid emissions, it's to reduce emission, and it's to compensate. And you should always avoid, and should always reduce. And the only thing then left to do is to compensate. And then it's about, what do you do? Do you plant trees? Yes, plant trees is one thing, but it's then about, where do you plant the trees? What kind of trees? An average tree and its lifetime takes down 4 tons of CO2 emissions, and an average Finn emits 10.4 tons per year. So, there's this educational aspect of understanding what is the magnitude of the problem and how can I change? And of course, I need to say that I work with everyone in this scenario. So we are directly connected to Mastercard. We work with mobility companies such as Tranzer. And I'm really hoping to get my Mercedes soon, Eric. So I'm coming for you. So definitely all of these things are relevant. And I think what we need to remember is, let's not try to make it too complicated, and let's not talk so much BS, and actually start acting, because upon the actions, we can actually have the challenge resolved. And if I look at Enfuce, of course, net zero is what we are aiming to. We are part of the climate pledge with Amazon and many other companies all around the world. So when we started off the company, I wanted to have a company where I can do payments faster, globally scalable, and of course, sustainably. And for us, sustainability is not just about, you know, green and emitting less. It is also about taking care of the people that work for us, you know, having good collaborations with customers. So those are the things that we do on a daily basis. So what we buy, what I pay, okay, I'm a cheapo Finn. I don't like paying, I like getting paid. But in the end of the day, still, it's about how do I procure? And that's a lot what, for example, Eric said, that since they actually produce, meaning that they have scope 1 emissions, they have scope 2 emissions, and now the scope 3 emissions, which are all the things that their customers and themselves produce while you know, doing their daily lives. That's where we also want to help, because the good thing is that governments are changing. Like Bas said, it's good that governments are pushing, and together we will change, because in the end of the day, it's about changing behavior. And the good thing with people are that we are herd animals. So when the many starts doing something, we will adopt it, whether we want to or not.